Good evening. The United States and Iran have begun a third round of indirect negotiations in Geneva, in discussions widely viewed as critical to preventing a potential conflict between the two nations. The talks come at a time of heightened tension, with President Donald Trump warning that he could order strikes on Iran if a new nuclear agreement is not reached. At the same time, Iran has stated that it would respond with force to any military action taken against it. The latest round of dialogue is taking place against the backdrop of the largest United States military buildup in the Middle East since the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq in 2003. In recent weeks, Washington has deployed thousands of additional troops to the region. President Trump has described the deployment as an armada, which includes 2 aircraft carriers accompanied by other warships, along with fighter jets and aerial refueling aircraft. The military reinforcement has added urgency to diplomatic efforts as both sides navigate rising tensions surrounding Iran's nuclear program. The negotiations in Geneva are once again being mediated by Oman's foreign minister, Badr Albusaidi. He has indicated that both delegations have shown what he described as unprecedented openness to new and creative ideas and solutions. His comments suggest that the discussions have involved proposals not previously considered in earlier rounds. However, despite that characterization, it remains uncertain whether the two sides will be able to reach a formal agreement. President Trump has stated publicly that he would prefer to resolve the crisis through diplomatic means. At the same time, he has said he is considering a limited military strike on Iran as a way to pressure its leadership into accepting a deal. While the president has outlined his preference for diplomacy, he has provided limited detail about the specific demands the United States is presenting in the negotiations. He has also not fully explained why military action might now be necessary, particularly given that 8 months have passed since the United States bombed Iranian nuclear facilities during a conflict involving Israel and Iran. Iran has rejected a key U.S. demand that it cease enriching uranium within its own territory. However, there have been indications that Tehran may be willing to offer certain concessions related to its nuclear program. The extent and nature of any possible compromise have not been fully detailed publicly. As in the previous 2 rounds of talks held earlier this month, the Iranian delegation is being led by Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. Representing the United States are Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law. The structure of the talks remains indirect, with Oman continuing its role as intermediary between the two sides. The broader dispute over Iran's nuclear activities has been ongoing for decades. The United States and Israel have long accused Iran of attempting to secretly develop a nuclear weapon. Iran has consistently maintained that its nuclear program is intended solely for peaceful purposes. Nevertheless, Iran is currently the only non-nuclear armed state known to have enriched uranium to levels close to weapons grade. That fact has remained a central point of contention in negotiations with Western governments. President Trump first raised the possibility of bombing Iran last month, during a period when Iranian security forces were suppressing anti-government protests. Thousands of people were reported killed during that crackdown. Since then, the president's public focus has shifted more directly toward Iran's nuclear program, which continues to be at the center of the diplomatic dispute. Earlier this week, during his State of the Union address to Congress, President Trump briefly addressed tensions with Iran. In his remarks, he stated that Iran was working to build missiles that would soon be capable of reaching the United States. He did not provide further details about that assertion. The president has also accused Iran of attempting to restart its nuclear weapons program following last year's strikes. He stated that he could not permit what he described as the world's leading sponsor of terrorism to obtain a nuclear weapon. Last June, the United States struck 3 nuclear sites inside Iran, joining Israel in a broader bombing campaign. At that time, President Trump said the facilities had been obliterated. Iranian officials have stated that enrichment activities ceased after the attacks. However, Iran has not allowed inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency to access the damaged sites since the strikes took place. In recent comments, President Trump said Iranian officials appear to want an agreement, but he added that he has not heard what he described as the necessary assurance that Iran will never possess a nuclear weapon. Hours before the president's address to Congress, however, Iran's foreign minister posted on social media that Iran would, under no circumstances, ever develop a nuclear weapon. Abbas Araghchi also described the current diplomatic moment as a historic opportunity to reach what he called an unprecedented agreement that addresses mutual concerns and achieves mutual interests. Following President Trump's speech, a spokesman for Iran's foreign ministry responded by accusing the United States of repeating what he described as false claims regarding Iran's nuclear program, its ballistic missile development, and the number of protesters killed during the recent crackdown. As this third round of indirect talks proceeds in Geneva, both sides remain engaged through mediation, even as military preparations and public statements underscore the seriousness of the situation. The outcome of these discussions could determine whether diplomatic efforts succeed in easing tensions or whether the standoff deepens further.